Why is inspiration important? This is the second video in my series on a mythology for our time, and we're going to look at fiction as a source of stories, fiction and myth. And by mythology, I also mean worldview or philosophy, because we don't really have one right now. So some years ago, I was invited to guest present to a community college class of about, I would guess, 150 people, maybe a few more. And so I began my presentation by asking them a question. In fields like politics, economics, religion, medicine, technology, what have you, when was the last time you felt inspired by something that was happening there? And there was this silence, and then all of a sudden people started clapping. And I said, "Why are you clapping?" And a woman near the front said, "I don't know about anybody else, but nobody ever asked me that before." And a number of people, "Yeah, me too," and you know, that kind of thing, right? And I said, let's get into it. Now, there are plenty of reasons to participate in cultural change for the better, to strive toward the kind of planet we want to live on, the kind of communities we want to build that are safe and just, and even a delight to be a part of. But what we usually hear are shoulds and oughts and threats and bad news. Now, let me be clear about this. We need to know the bad news. We shouldn't be in denial. That just gets us into the abyss. So yes, we need to know the bad news. But what I often see, especially in conversations around any kind of social change, is only the bad news. There's nothing that inspires. There's nothing that draws us forward. And yet, in some of the stories we'll be talking about, in visions of how things could be, fictional visions of futures we might walk into, that inspires me. Imagining where we could go together. That's a pull from forward, from the front, rather than a push from behind. And so I think one of the reasons inspiration matters is that we can get on board with it. It's exciting. Where can we go? What can we do? So when I was a boy growing up in a tough situation and watching Star Trek, for example, one example of several, what excited me the most was the idea of a peaceful 23rd century. It was then, now it's 24th and 25th as the show rolls on, but a peaceful future full of abundance, where there's no war, where there's no poverty, no racism, no sexism, no ableism. So that fired me up way more than any tract could, any protest. So for some years now, I've been curious about how effective inspiration is, collected some research on it, collected research on imagination, talked to, and am talking right now to, community activists, many in the global south, about where story and imagination and inspiration guide their work, and just hearing amazing things. So that's why I put so much emphasis on being inspired by stories. And we all know fiction is fiction, but fiction contains deeper truths. And I mentioned Ursula K. Le Guin in my last video. I'll mention her again here. She said sometimes a story about a stranded starship or a dragon or something along those lines can actually speak more directly to the current human condition than facts and figures could. So we'll be dealing with fiction. So more as we go.